The sun was sliding low behind the red bluffs when Eli Carter saw the man fall from his horse, a dark shape tumbling into the dust at the edge of the dry creek bed, and at first, Eli thought it was just another trick of the heat or a stray shadow cast by the cottonwoods. But then the horse bolted riderless and the body did not move, and something in Eli's chest tightened the way it always did when trouble found its way onto his land. Eli was a rancher who measured his life in fence posts and seasons, a man shaped by droughts and hard winters, and he had learned long ago that ignoring suffering never made it disappear. It only made it rot. He swung down from his saddle, the leather creaking like an old door, and approached slowly, one hand raised, the other resting near the canteen at his hip. The wounded man was native, his clothes torn and dark with blood at the shoulder, his breath shallow, his face cracked with dust and pain, and when his eyes fluttered, open they held fear sharpened into something close to defiance. Eli knew the stories whispered in town, knew the way fear traveled faster than truth, but standing there in the fading light, with a dying man at his boots, none of that mattered. What mattered was water. Eli knelt, careful, deliberate, and uncorked his canteen, letting a few drops spill onto the man's cracked lips before offering more, slow and steady, like you would to a frightened animal or a child. The man drank as if each swallow was a battle won, and when he finished, his breathing eased just enough for Eli to see he might live if the night was kind. Eli tore a strip from his own shirt and pressed it against the wound, feeling the warmth of blood soak through his fingers, and as he worked he spoke softly, not because he expected to be understood, but because silence can feel like abandonment. He said his name, said the land was safe, said the water was clean, and for a moment the world narrowed to the sound of wind in the grass and the steady rhythm of a heart refusing to stop. Eli helped the man onto his own horse, supporting his weight, and led them back toward the ranch, each step heavy, with the knowledge that mercy has a way of echoing farther than cruelty ever does. By the time the ranch house came into view, the sky had turned the color of old bruises, purple and gold, and Eli felt the weight of a choice settle over him like a second skin. He knew that helping this man could bring trouble, that kindness could be misread as insult or invitation or weakness, but he also knew that turning away would leave a mark on his soul no fence could keep out. He laid the man on a blanket in the barn, cleaned the wound as best he could, and left water within reach, then stood there a long while listening, wondering who this man was and what road had carried him bleeding onto Eli's land. Sleep came late and shallow, filled with dreams of hoofbeats and voices rising like thunder, and when dawn broke it did so with a strange stillness, the kind that presses against your ears and tells you something is coming. Eli stepped outside with his coffee still steaming and froze. At the far edge of his pasture, where the fence met the open plain, shapes were gathering, first a few, then dozens, then more than he could count. Men and women mounted on horses, their silhouettes sharp against the rising sun, banners and feathers stirring in the morning breeze. They came not in chaos but in formation, a living tide of muscle and will, and the ground itself seemed to hum beneath their approach. Eli's heart hammered, fear and resolve tangling together, and for a brief, honest moment, he wondered if this was the price of a single canteen of water. He stood his ground, hands open, breathing slow, remembering the weight of the wounded man's body and the way his eyes had softened after that first drink. As the riders drew closer, Eli could see faces, could see eyes searching his land, his house, his very posture, measuring him as he had measured the man by the creek. The lead rider raised a hand, and the entire group slowed, horses snorting, leather creaking, the air thick with anticipation. Eli felt small and rooted all at once, a lone fence post facing a storm, and yet beneath the fear was something steadier, something earned, because he had acted not as a rancher or a stranger but as a human being. The lead rider spoke, his voice carrying across the field like a drumbeat, and though Eli could not understand every word, he understood the tone, the weight of it, the way it acknowledged a debt. Eli gestured toward the barn, toward the water, toward the place where the wounded man rested, and in that gesture was his entire story, simple and unarmed. The riders exchanged looks, a current of emotion passing among them, and Eli realized then that whatever happened next would not just belong to him, but to anyone who ever wondered whether a single act of kindness could stand against generations of fear. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows that stitched the land together. Eli felt the moment stretch, fragile and powerful, and he knew that this was only the beginning, that the water he had given had already begun to move, rippling outward, calling something ancient and immense to his door. If you want to know what those riders said, why they came, and how one man's choice changed the fate of an entire valley, make sure you stay with this story and subscribe to the channel, because Chapter 2 reveals what happens when mercy meets memory, and the answer will stay with you long after the dust settles.